Welcome to week 2 of the 2021 NFL season. You are watching MK Double DFS. I am your host, Brandon. Really excited for this week 2. We have a lot of great games, a lot of shootout potential, a lot of high scoring totals. Coming off last week, there were a lot of value plays that just didn't hit the spot. I had Raheem Mostert rostered in quite a bit of my lineups. He ended up going down. It was a bloody Sunday, but we're hoping that this Sunday we can turn it around. A lot of these games are looking very good, and with the small sample size that we have from last week, we can see just how well a lot of these rookies and some of these new players are fitting into the lineups and fitting into the the play calling experience of some of these offensive coordinators, and hopefully they're going to be able to turn us around if they had a bad game and make us some money this time. So once again, if you saw my last video, the way I do it is we're going to go with the 5 most interesting players at each position. QB through tight end, defense I don't really touch on, and then obviously throughout that we'll do some honorable mentions, ones I'm really looking at. But the 5 main ones we're going to be touching on, just so you guys have a general idea as to who to put in your lineups for this week coming up. So first and foremost, obviously we got Kyler Murray here coming off a huge game. He threw for 21 of 32, 289 yards, 4 touchdowns, and he also had that rushing upside with 20 yards and a touchdown. So he was able to garner you 34.56 points. Now, he's obviously, there is no Patrick Mahomes, so he is going to be the highest salary capped QB on the slate here. But honestly, you could run him naked if you wanted to. I'm sure there were some Kyler Murray naked stacks. Obviously, D-Hop was the man to go to if you did stack him up. But that game really wasn't the shootout that we thought it was. Tennessee wasn't really putting up much with their offense. So hopefully this time against Minnesota, we know who they have. Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, and also Kirk Cousins is a fantastic QB who's been doing this for a while. So maybe, hopefully, their offense can keep up pace with the Arizona Cardinals. But their defense is looking pretty stout too. Obviously, was able to sack Ryan Tannehill like 5 times, 1 defender. You know what I mean? So hopefully Kyler Murray, obviously he's going to be the fantastic stack. You could run it back with, you could run him naked and then run it with a run back and Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson. But obviously, if you're going to put in a player, I would probably target D-Hop. Again, he is going to be very expensive. The stack is going to be the highest salary stack on the slate, but you're going to be getting that upside from the QB rushing, passing. He's going to be able to pass the ball a lot. It's at Minnesota. They don't have the best defense, and we know how good Nuke Hopkins is. So he's an obvious one. Russell Wilson is another one that we're going to be targeting here. We saw what Kyler Murray did, to them. So can Russell do the same thing? And with the way that he's been throwing, is Russ cooking? 254 and 4 touchdowns against the Colts, a very stout defense. Tennessee is not as good as them. We saw that last week, and we knew that from the seasons prior. Tennessee, you could pretty much do anything you want with them. They don't really do anything. It's really offense versus offense with them. They kind of rely on Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown and now Julio Jones to kind of run that offense with Ryan Tannehill at the helm. So, this could easily shoot out. It's got another high total. We know how good Russell Wilson is with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Tyler Lockett was able to go for like 2 touchdowns and over 100 yards. So if you had him in your lineups last week, he was putting you, up there with those, tournaments that you're playing and stuff like that. Tyler Lockett was a great pick. DK Metcalf is also a great stud. He is still more expensive than Tyler Lockett, so you could pivot to Lockett, but obviously DK Metcalf is going to get you those points somewhere. So Russell Wilson is going to be a fantastic one to target here. Obviously, another one is Josh Allen. They came off a bad game against the Steelers. Steelers is a very stout defense. It's hard to do anything against them. Thought it was going to be more of a close game, but it wasn't. ended up being, well, I mean 16-23, but I thought it was going to be, I guess, closer and more. They were going to be able to do more or something, but clearly not. Diggs is still his number one guy, and against Miami, still a good defense, but we saw what they were able to do with against them last season. Diggs went for, I think, 37 points or something like that, and Josh Allen went for his usual upwards of 20, close to 30. So if he can repeat that again against Miami this season, then I think he's a perfect QB to run. He is very expensive. I'm this 82, 72 range. I know it's about 1,000 difference from the top here with Josh Allen. But, I mean, there are a lot of other QBs down here that are going to be able to get you that. So up here, you have the rushing upside, Kyler Murray, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts. But down here with, like, Dak Prescott, Tom Brady, Justin Herbert, they're going to get you there with their arms, and you can expect them to throw the ball quite a bit. So they're also going to be ones I'm targeting. I'm actually going to kind of bunch these three together here, Brady, Prescott, and Herbert, just because of the matchup. Dallas and the Chargers obviously is another highest scoring total game. I think it's like maybe the second highest on the slate or the third. It's one of the top three, obviously. Dallas is just a pass funnel heavy offense. We saw that he was able to do 42 of 58 attempts for 403 yards with 3 touchdowns. The interception wasn't much. I mean, against the Chargers, they're a good defense, but I don't expect to see the Dallas Cowboys slowing down their offense at all, and it didn't really seem like they were running Zeke out there a lot. Tony Pollard was able to catch some balls out of the backfield. Zeke was able to do his middling effort. Excuse me. But Dak Prescott with Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb, with Michael Gallup out, even maybe Cedric Wilson as a cheap punt play. I think it's like 4K min. So if you want to throw any of those three in a lineup with Dak Prescott at the helm, run it back with Keenan Allen, I think that's a perfect play this week. And they are going to be pretty popular just because of the total. But I mean, it's kind of like one of those things with like Christian McCaffrey. You know he's going to get the volume. You know he's going to get the targets. Prescott's going to be able to pass a lot against this, and especially if they're two decently playable offenses like the Chargers is with Herbert at the helm and the Cowboys with Dak Prescott here. I think he's going to be a perfect tournament play. Like I said, stack him up with Amari Cooper. He's probably the one I'm going to be going to a lot. CeeDee Lamb's also going to get the volume as well. But you can choose either one of those two guys and probably make a case for yourself to win the millie. Justin Herbert's another good one here. He's my guy. I love Herbert. I loved him since last season. I picked him up in season long, and I also have him in season long this season. I had him last season, also this season. I love the man. I missed out on Josh Allen, but to be honest, Herbert is looking like the stud that he was in his rookie year. And now it's his sophomore year, so he got a lot more to prove to see if he can keep doing it. He loves Keenan Allen. Mike Williams is stepping up now. He's got a good receiver core, and Austin Eckler out of the backfield being able to catch some dump passes from Herbert is perfect. So obviously I love Herbert again, and he was able to do quite a bit. 31 of 47 for 337 and a touchdown over the Washington football team. You know what I mean? So and they have a very, very good defense. Chase Young and all these guys at corners able to try and lock Keenan Allen and Mike Williams down. They did a decently, good job. I believe Jared Cook was able to catch some balls as well. But I just don't see Dallas being able to do that. We saw how heavily they got bombarded in the air by Brady and his receivers. So can Justin Herbert do that with Keenan Allen's, 14 targets and Mike Williams is like 11? I'm guaranteed he can. And another one's Tom Brady. We got Tom Brady here, just the GOAT. He's one of the greatest. Last season, he wasn't really putting up those crazy numbers. But in a passing attack, and their offense is good. I mean, they are able to get the ball in the air, catch the ball, get the touchdown. You know what I mean? They come and go fast, and they're kicking it right back to their team. So if he's able to do that against Atlanta, maybe Matt Ryan and Calvin Ridley can try to keep it close. But I believe Brady is going to be able to just air it out just as much as he did against Dallas. 32 of 50 for 379 with 4 touchdowns. Like I said, the interceptions, I mean, they're minus 1 point, but 32 points versus 34 points. I'm going to still have a lot of Brady in these lineups, just because of the ability to air the ball out. He's got Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown, Gronk. I don't really trust Fournette, and I think Rojo's getting the start this week, so I'm not really worried about their backfield. So if I'm going to target anything, it'd probably be the high-flying receivers that are able to catch these long balls for Brady and hopefully get Brady that 300 yards passing bonus. So another one we're going to look at here is obviously Jalen Hurts. I had him in a lot of my lineups last week, and he was able to do a decently good job for me and some cash, as well as some GPP. He was able to kill the Falcons. The Falcons looked terrible. And another, high total game here. I believe it's 50, 54, 53 or something like that, or maybe even 55. It's going to be a shootout. You got Jimmy Garoppolo, Jalen Hurts. Mostert was hurt, so they're going to be running with some weird backfield. You could really just run naked with Jalen. I think he's like another Kyler Murray, where he's going to get that rushing upside. He's going to get that hopefully 300 passing with a few touchdowns under his belt. Going to be able to get you those points. And at 65, they didn't really price him up at all. He was 64 last week, 65 now, but he got you 28 points, almost 30. I mean, that's fantastic. And especially if this game is going to be as close as we think it is, then I think he's just going to be a perfect play, 100%. Couple other ones I'm looking down here. I mean, Jameis Winston was good, but against Carolina, don't know how they were going to do. Like I said, you can run it back with Tannehill if you're going to go with like an A.J. Brown stack against Seattle, because they don't have that good of a wide receiver core. Matt Stafford, he looks fantastic with Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods and Tyler Higbee and all those guys. Against Indianapolis, and we saw what Russell Wilson was able to do against them, and we know Stafford likes to throw the ball, and he's got a fantastic arm on him. So could he do that against Indianapolis? Sure. I just don't want to risk it. So I'm kind of going to stay away from him a little bit. Another one I'm looking at here is actually Teddy Bridgewater. Like I said last week, he has got the rushing upside. He's able to do something, and he's got an arm on him. He's not a bad QB at all. He was able to get you 20.46 points, but at 4,800, that allowed you to pay up for CMC, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, all those big guys up top. And again, he's going to do that this week, 5,400. They priced him up 600, but to be honest, he's still a huge, discount versus the other guys. And if he's able to give me 264 yards and 2 touchdowns again, I mean, that was against the Giants. Jacksonville has not as good of a defense. We saw what Houston was able to do against them. And Houston was just pounding the rock in with the run, and Tyrod Taylor was able to sling the ball. So if Teddy Bridgewater can get to the 5, run his little legs inside to get you a rushing touchdown, that's fantastic. So I don't see why he's that bad of a play at all. All right, so we're going to head over to the running backs now. Any of those guys I mentioned there are probably going to be good plays. So we can start here. CMC, obviously, but I'm actually going to be staying away from these top 3. I know that sounds kind of weird, just because we know that they're like the number ones out of on their team. CMC is just crazy, but at 9,900, it's tough to get roster construction good enough to where you can fit them in. Just because I really want to be attacking a lot of the good 6K wide receivers this week. So Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook. I mean, against Arizona, I think Cook might be able to get you that touchdown, but I'm really looking forward to that shootout potential. So I'm going to be looking towards Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, Alvin Kamara. We know what he can do. He is 8,800. It's not too bad. He was priced at 86. So they priced him up 200, and he was able to get you 18. If he's able to get that 100-yard rushing, I'm sure they would have put him up way more. Another one, though, the one I'm going to be really looking at here, though, is Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb against Houston. We saw what Cleveland can do. I mean, I think they have a fantastic offense this season. Baker Mayfield's really starting to get into a groove with his wide receivers, Jarvis Landry. Hopefully when OBJ comes back in, he'll be able to give it to him a lot. I believe, their tight ends like Njoku, he was catching some balls as well. So I'm really liking what Baker's doing. And Nick Chubb was able to get his 2 touchdowns that we know that he's good for. And I can see this game slowing down. Maybe they're just going to run the clock because Houston really can't keep up. Could Houston do well with Brandon Cooks and Tyrod Taylor? Sure, but the game script that I'm going to be looking towards is that Cleveland is just going to dominate Houston, and they're not going to be able to get the ball much. And if they do, then they're not going to do much with it. And Nick Chubb is going to be able to just get the ball and run it and run it and run it and hopefully get those 20 plus attempts, maybe 20 and a half with a 100-yard bonus and a touchdown. That's going to be perfect for me at 7,800. You could even go with Kareem Hunt out the backfield because we know how good of a pass catcher he is. So any of those 2 guys are going to be perfect. Joe Mixon's going to be another good one. We saw the volume here that he had last week for us for 29 yards, 29 times for 127 yards and a touchdown, and catching all 4 of his targets. So can we expect Mixon to be the crazy sleeper pick god that we think he all is? We all think he is, rather. He could. I don't really understand why the game script kind of fell to that way that it did, but against Chicago, I'm hoping that they keep it close enough to where Joey B's just going to have to keep airing the ball out. I don't feel good putting Mixon in my lineups, but we saw what he did. Can it just be one of those weird outlier games where he gets 29 rushing attempts? Sure. But could it stay? I mean, maybe they have a thing for him now. Giovanni Bernard went over to Tampa Bay. So can Joe Mixon just keep all the bell cow backs up to himself? Sure. Another one I'm going to be looking at here is Najee Harris. Everyone's been talking about him. He played like 100% of the snaps or some crap like that. So he's going to be very good. And against Vegas, who was able to put up decent bit of rushing yards. I'm not going to count the Lamar Jackson rushing yards because that's just Jackson. And that's my guy. I'm a big Ravens fan. But, Tyson Williams, they were able to give up some yards to him as well. And I believe a touchdown too. And Najee Harris, I mean, he's the pick. Here's their pick of the draft for a reason. They're not going to just not use him, and they don't have James Conner anymore. They have Willie Snead or whatever his name is. I think it's Snead or whoever that gentleman is in the backfield with them. But I think they're just going to have Harris out there a ton, and I do trust him, and I'm hoping that Big Ben can give him the ball a lot. And yeah, I mean, at 6,300, he's going to be fantastic. He's going to be heavily owned. I know for a fact. I'm looking at the projections. He is going to be pretty popular. So, if you want to pivot away from him, you can and just kind of go with some of these other like cheaper run backs, or maybe even pay up. But obviously, he's going to be one to look at. So, another one I'm looking at here is David Montgomery. He's like Derrick Henry if Derrick Henry was a bit smaller and wasn't just as much of a. He's like Derrick Henry's son, basically. He's able to shed the tackles. He gets the most work out of the backfield. He's able to get you that inside the 5 carry for the touchdown. He's got some pass catching back. He caught 1 for 10. Could it be more? I'm sure it can. But 16 for 108 against the Rams, who have like a crazy good defense. I think against Cincinnati, it's going to be way easier. And it doesn't really matter who's at the helm, whether it's Justin Fields or Andy Dalton. I think, a lot of these running back work is going to go to David Montgomery for sure. And then one more I'm looking at down here, like all the way down here at 5,400, is Damian Harris. We saw what he was able to do. Again, they don't have anybody. New England has nobody in the backfield. Bill Belichick may scare us here with some random news that he's not going to get as much, but 23 times for 100 yards. If he's able to get the touchdown for us that we think he can against the Jets, and that's even better. And, against the Dolphins, it's tough. The Dolphins have a very good, front 4 to front 6 that they got going on in their defense. The Jets, they're decent. They looked okay. But, Sam Darnold was still able to do his thing against the Jets, and the Jets are still going to be low. And they still have, Zach Wilson at a QB and who's not really going to be able to do much. He's able to give some passes to Corey Davis, but New England has a very, very good defense. And if they're able to stop Zach Wilson and the Jets' offense, then Damian Harris can keep getting his 20 plus touches. And at 5,400, that's crazy to not think about. So then we're going to look at the wide receivers. D-Hop, obviously, Stephon Diggs is a guarantee. He's going to get you his points wherever. I mean, even against Miami, like we saw what he did last season, like I said. DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. One of these two I'm definitely probably putting in, and I'm going to be targeting just because of their upside. I mean, if Russell Wilson decides to pick DK for that week, he's going to get his 2 touchdowns and 100 plus. It could be a Lockett day or a Lockett week as well. But I like to test my luck with DK Metcalf since he's always the go-to. For me, though, the ones I'm going to be looking at here are Keenan Allen. I love this man. He has won me some money in the past, and hopefully he'll continue to win me money. The man gets insane target volume, 13 targets. He caught 9 of them, but again, that was against Washington. This is against Dallas. I could easily see 13 targets with 10 receptions or 11 receptions and 100 yards and maybe even a touchdown, because we know that Justin Herbert's red zone go-to guy is Keenan Allen as well. Obviously, now they have Eckler, who's able to run some stuff out of the backfield. He's seeming to get those goal line carries, but also so is just JJ. His initials are JJ. I can't think of his name right now, but he's able to get some too. But I'm always going to trust Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen's able to catch those good balls. He's always got the eye of Justin Herbert, so he's a lock for me. And at 7K, who got 22 points last week at 69, they didn't bump him up too much, so I think he's a definite value pick for me. AJ Brown, I mean, you could, like I said, if you're attacking this Seattle-Tennessee game, AJ Brown's obviously a go-to. I do trust Julio Jones, though. I love the man. He's a fantastic wide receiver. We saw what he was able to do in Atlanta. And yeah, sure, he might not have, that synchronicity with Tannehill right now. But maybe this is the game to do it. Like I said, Arizona was able to sack Tannehill quite a bit. They weren't able to get their offense moving. Couldn't get the ground game. Couldn't get the air game. But against Seattle, it's a perfect time to do that. And we know how if Julio Jones works and he's not injured, this man can go for 100 plus yards and like 11 receptions. So as long as Tannehill can understand that, I think it would be perfect. Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, you can choose any of these guys. I love Cooper based on what he was able to do last week. You could go with CeeDee. Maybe they scheme for Cooper more because of the high volume targets. So if you want to go with CeeDee, you could. Michael Gallup is out, though, so they're going to obviously get a bit more of a workload just because Cedric Wilson is newer on that wide receiver core. So any of those two are perfect. You could punt with Cedric Wilson if you wanted to, but I'm always going to go with the go-tos. Another one I'm looking at here is Deebo Samuel. Again, probably an outlier game, right? 12 targets, 9 receptions, a touchdown. He was able to run some as well for 189 yards, right? It was against Detroit, and Detroit was able to come back and try to do something. Obviously, they still won. Against Philadelphia, probably won't be as easy. He does have Darius Slay to go up against, and we saw what the Philadelphia defense was able to do at Atlanta. But Deebo Samuel is very good. He's been very good, and when he's not injured all the time, he's able to take it to the next level. They didn't have Brandon Ayuk playing that week, so that might kind of take away from him. But based on the possible shootout potential that we think this game is going to have, I do expect Deebo Samuel to still see a steady volume of targets. So he's a bit expensive at 67. I mean, he's always kind of been that like 5K, 6K range. So, I mean, you are paying a decent premium for him, but if they don't trust Brandon Ayuk on the offense and Shanahan is trying to get him working again, and it's going to go to Kittle and it's going to go to Samuel, and that, like I said, that the run back core is not doing too well right now with Mostert out. Is Trey Sermon going to play? Do they give it to Elijah Williams? They could, but Deebo Samuel also has his attempts for rushing. Sometimes they give him some rushing attempts and he's able to run it in. So if you're able to do that, that'll get you some extra points as well. So another one here, Jarvis Landry. Jarvis Landry against Houston. I know I said I'm going to be targeting a lot of Nick Chubb, but OBJ isn't playing again. They've already ruled him out. So can Jarvis Landry still see a steady volume of targets? He was only able to see 5, but he was able to grab, the touchdown with the run in, 71 yards. I mean, it's not perfect, but he's still going to see something. And Jarvis Landry is a very good wide receiver. We saw his play-making potential last season. We know it's going to go forward. I don't know if you guys have been watching his YouTube content, where he's showing his team working out in the off season and stuff like that. But they're looking good, and Baker Mayfield is looking fantastic as well. And Jarvis Landry is going to be his go-to. Some other guys down here I'm looking at, Allen Robinson. Obviously, he's even got the targets still. He wasn't able to catch a lot, but he's their number one on that offense, so he's going to be fantastic. And at 6,200, we know what he can do, so that's pretty cheap. Mike Evans, terrible week for him last time against Dallas. I do think this is a bounce-back spot against Atlanta. We know how terrible Atlanta is against the pass, and if Tom Brady feels that Mike Evans needs some more spotlight, he might throw the ball a bit more to him. But it was Godwin and it was Antonio Brown and Gronk last time. So maybe Mike Evans is saying, "Hey Brady, give me a chance," and he's going to throw the ball downfield. And we know how long balls go with Mike Evans. He's usually going to grab him and hopefully run in for that touchdown for us. So he's going to be one I'm looking at too. And at 6,100, he's not too expensive. We obviously have Antonio Brown here. He was priced up a little bit. He was able to get those 7 targets for 121 yards and that touchdown as well. But like I said, I'm going to be paying just a little bit more up for Mike Evans, and I think you can fit him in there. And these other guys down here, I mean, I'm looking at some of them. Jerry Jeudy's on IR, so if you wanted to go with Sutton, you could. I do trust Teddy Bridgewater, so you can go with Sutton. You could go with KJ Hamler. You could go with Tim Patrick, who was able to get some targets as well. Noah Fant. Any of those guys are going to be good. We are going to miss Jerry Jeudy. He's a very good wide receiver, but this just opens some more potential for other people. Devontae Smith, if you wanted to run him with Jalen Hurts, you could, and you could run it back with like a Deebo Samuel or Brandon Ayuk or something like that, or even a George Kittle. Jamar Chase, he looked really good, and if I'm going to be having some David Montgomery, he's going to be a good run back as well. But like I said, any of these other guys down here, Russell Gage wasn't able to get any targets. Tyler Boyd, if I'm going to be looking at Chase or like T. Higgins, probably more than Tyler Boyd. Marvin Jones Jr. was the go-to guy. He was that value pick that ended up working out for you. However, it's hard for me to trust them. And against Denver, we know how good Denver is and their defense. If they can kind of keep the pace of the game in their favor, then Trevor Lawrence and Marvin Jones aren't going to be able to do as well as they did last week. Jalen Waddle is also a very good one, but against Buffalo, it's going to be tough. So any of these guys down here, I'm just not really looking at. Callaway was a bust. Ruggs is good, but against Pittsburgh, I don't trust him. So any of these guys down here, I'm not really messing with. You can maybe make a case for Jalen Reagor if it's going to be a shootout. Gabriel Davis did some work for me, ironically, but I'm not really worried about any of these guys down here. And to be honest, especially with a lot of these guys being like 6K and some of the running backs I'm looking at being like 6K, and if you go with like a Jalen Hurts who's only 6,400, they're all going to be in that middle of the pack value with the salary, and you're able to kind of fit in a lot, especially if you go like basic defense, a cheap tight end who's going to get some targets, and the rest are all just cheap flexes. Then you can fit all these guys in. And then lastly, we're going to look here at the tight ends. Darren Waller, fantastic. The dude saw monstrous amount of targets, 19 targets for 105 yards and a touchdown. Imagine if he was able to catch more than just 10, but some of those balls were out of his control. But that was against the Ravens, and the Ravens are very good. This is against Pittsburgh. But we know how good Darren Waller is. He's kind of like this weird outlier tight end, kind of like, Travis Kelce, who's able to catch monstrous balls and get crazy amount of volume all the time. George Kittle is another good one here. He only had 5 targets for 78, and its price tag is 64. He's been good in previous seasons, but this season with even against Detroit was 41-33. What a crazy total! He was only able to see the 5. Could he have seen more? Sure. Will he see more? Who knows? I'm gonna kind of stay away from this higher end. Besides, like maybe like Gronk and Godere, because we know how good those two are. Kyle Pitts was also pretty good. He had 8 targets. They just couldn't get their offense going. Maybe if they were closer and they kept the game closer, could Kyle Pitts have taken it to the, to the box and gotten you a extra 6 points on him? Sure, but he didn't. But hopefully Atlanta can pick themselves back up. Keep doing well. Tampa Bay doesn't rank that well against any of the passing defenses. They were able to do something against Dallas, so maybe it's a little different this season. But we know that Tampa Bay has been quite a bit of a pass funnel in previous seasons. So could they, keep that going? Could Atlanta at least do something against them? Sure. But I trust Brady and his offense to keep the ball out of their hands, and especially that defense too. So Rob Gronkowski and Dallas Goedert, obviously they're the number 1 guys out there. Rob Gronkowski is going to see crazy amount of targets as well, 8 for 90 and 2 touchdowns. He is the red zone guy. Him and Chris Godwin. AB and Mike Evans are the long balls. If they catch him, that's fantastic. Gronk, though, is that little kind of dump play where Gronk goes out, tries to push a defender, turns around and catches it and runs it for a touchdown. So could he do that multiple times this game as well against the crappy Atlanta defense? Sure. So he's obviously one of the guys I'm going to be looking at. And then down here, I mean, you can kind of go with any of these guys. Ebron, Ferks is priced up a little bit now. Dalton Schultz is still going to see some targets. He was able to see 6 for 45. I mean, 10 points at 3,300 isn't bad. If he can get you a little bit more, that's even better. And especially, against the Chargers, who are going to keep it pretty tight, I don't think it's a bad idea at all. The one I am going to be looking at here, though, is Pharaoh Brown. If he practices and he's fine, he was able to see 5 targets for 67 yards against Jacksonville. I mean, Cleveland doesn't bode well against the pass much. I mean, they do have a good defense, but they're the cornerback whole core of them, the defensive backs aren't really that fantastic. We saw what they weren't able to do against Kansas City. We obviously know that's a crazy mismatch for them, but could Pharaoh Brown see some more targets? He could. Yeah, 5 targets isn't bad at all for 67 yards, especially at his price point of 2,900. Not bad at all. And then one more guy I'm looking at here down here is Jay O'Shaughnessy. He was able to see 8 targets for 48. Again, could it be a weird outlier? Sure. Jacksonville did have to keep it close against Houston just because Houston were kind of blowing them out of the water. Could Denver do the exact same thing? Yes. Teddy Bridgewater could, make this a pretty high total game that Trevor Lawrence is going to have to throw the ball around to see if he can get downfield. And 8 targets for 48 yards, 10 points. I mean, like I said, it's all about the target share. It's all about the volume. 6 receptions. He's able to get those hands. At 2,700, he is a very good discounted tight end who's going to be able to get you something, so you can pay up for those mid-level wide receivers. So, and obviously we don't go down with defenses. You probably just go with the Texans and be okay with it, or somewhere around this range here. But it all just depends on price tags. So the main games I'm going to be looking at, like we did last video, San Francisco and Philadelphia. Here, Jalen Hurts is going to be a fantastic play. You could even run Miles Sanders. I don't know what they're doing with the Eli Mitchell, or the Trey Sermon thing. You could, if they come out with a statement, you could put one of them in, maybe. But I'm not really going to be looking at that. If anything, I'll probably be looking at Deebo Samuel. You could go with I went with Jalen Reagor last week, and he was able to do pretty well and give me some good points on there. So him or Devontae Smith would be good. And then obviously I'm going to be targeting Deebo Samuel, even at his 6,700 price tag. They're not really trusting Brandon Ayuk at the back, so I'm not really worried about it. George Kittle, Dallas Goedert, obviously good ones. If Zach Ertz is injured then Dallas Goedert is going to go through the roof. So, but after that, we're going to be looking at the Buffalo Miami game. Here we have Josh Allen, perfect play. I don't really trust Tua. He's able to get you 17.18, but that was against New England, and Buffalo's another tough one. They're ranked 5th on the defense. So if anything, I'm just going to go with Josh Allen here. Myles Gaskin, I wanted him to do well. He only got me 12.6 in some of my lineups, hoping he could, they can give him more of a workload back. I don't see why they're not doing that. Maybe they're trying to trust Tua more. But I don't really trust his running back, the backfield out of Buffalo. Devin Singletary or Zach Moss, choose one depending on if they're all playing. And if Singletary plays, he's not going to get you much anyways. 11 attempts, 72 yards. They're going to give Josh Allen the ball, and he's going to do his thing. Stephon Diggs, amazing. Emmanuel Sanders, Gabriel Davis, whatever. Pick one of them, I guess. I'm not really trying to go with Gabe Davis again just because, I don't know. He was able to do something for me last week, but this week I don't really trust him against Miami. Will Fuller comes back. Hopefully he plays, or hopefully he's going to do something. If he doesn't play, then we just wait. But I love Will Fuller, and he's super cheap now, and we know what he can do. Devontae Parker, he was able to get you 12 points. We used to be a Devontae Parker stan, me and a buddy, but we don't talk about him much anymore, and it's unfortunate because he's fantastic. And Cole Beasley, Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle is very good on the Miami offense. They're clearly doing something with him. So at 4,500, you can stick with him. Cole Beasley, he's going to get you his 14, basic, close to 20 maybe. But again, he's 4,400 or 4,600, so can't go wrong with that. And then you obviously have Mike Gesicki or Dawson Knox for the other end. Another one I'm going to be looking at here is the Minnesota-Arizona game. Let's go back here and actually cancel this one out. The Minnesota-Arizona game, obviously we have Kyler Murray. This is going to be another one of those games where everyone's going to be talking about it afterwards. Murray's back. He's back in his prime. He's able to keep killing it on the field, running in for touchdowns, throwing those balls. He's got a good arm. He's able to sling it. He's got some good wide receivers, with obviously like Nuke and Kirk. Even maybe A.J. Green was able to see some targets and stuff like that. So give it to any one of those guys, and they'll be able to do something. Chase Edmonds is obviously very good as well. But you could really just run Kyler Murray and be fine with it. Dalvin Cook on the opposite end with Minnesota is going to get you there, but I'm staying away from those high salary running backs this time just because there's not crazy amount of value for you out there. D-Hop, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, any of those three guys are going to be good. You could even maybe pay up for D-Hop and be fine with it at 8K. He's not crazy. He is the highest priced wide receiver on the slate, but you're going to get those steady volume targets. So, and then Tyler Conklin, he's going to be a cheap one, 3,200. They priced him up from the 29 that he was. So he's in that 3K range. He's going to get you those targets, 4, but he is the go-to tight end at that offense. So it's probably going to be a good one to choose. So another one I'm looking at here is Atlanta and Tampa Bay. Tom Brady is the go-to for me on that one. Mike Davis, I thought he was going to do something, but he's got these 15 attempts, just wasn't able to get past that Philadelphia line for him. 3 receptions, 6 targets, not bad. So he's able to get some work out the backfield as well for pass catching. And they might have to do that against Tampa Bay, so worth a shot, I guess. Rojo is the starter, I believe. And against Atlanta, they don't have a crazy front 4. So you could probably run Rojo in there. I don't trust him, nor do I trust Fournette. So, it's kind of a toss-up with any of those. Calvin Ridley, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Antonio Brown. Any of those 4 guys are going to be good to target this game. You could run it with Mike Evans, run it back with Ridley. Gage, I thought was going to give me something. But like I said, they kind of didn't do too much on that offense. Cordell Patterson was able to see some targets, but maybe against this game it'll be different, and Gage might be able to give you something. and obviously Kyle Pitts and Gronkowski. If anything, I'm going to go with Pitts for that second wide receiver, secondary stack. If I don't want to pay up for Ridley and I'll go with Pitts, that's perfectly fine. And Gronk's going to get that red zone work. So this one here, Dallas and Los Angeles. I love Dak Prescott. I love Justin Herbert. If anything, I love Dak Prescott more because we know he's got the arm for it. He's coming back. He's got fucking, Jerry Jones just trying to make sure that he's got his money's worth and, hoping that he can keep Dak Prescott healthy. So Dak Prescott is going to be working for his contract, basically. Austin Eckler, I trust him. I like him. Justin Jackson could snag a carry and grab a touchdown off of him and vulture that. But I do like Eckler because he's going to go to catch those dump passes out the backfield. I don't really trust Ezekiel Elliott or Tony Pollard here. So, I would kind of pass on these two, but if it's a perfect pivot, then I would do it, right? If you can pivot off Keenan Allen or Amari Cooper and go with Ezekiel Elliott just for some exposure to this game, and he runs it in for a touchdown and gets some decent workload, then it's perfect. But obviously, I'm going to be looking at Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, these three guys. Maybe Mike Williams. I might have one in there just because of his playmaking potential. But we just know that all the targets are mostly going to go to Keenan Allen, so I'll probably keep it around there. Like I said, you could also go with Cedric Wilson. Not stone cold, minimum, but 3,100, just about basically. Even when Michael Gallup left, he was able to get 3 targets for 24. So if he stays in for the whole game, with Gallup out for like 3 to 5 weeks or something like that, he could see maybe 6 to 7. And if he gets one in for a touchdown at 3,100, that's perfect. Jared Cook, Dalton Schultz. Blake Jarwin's newer. Well, he's not newer. He came off the IR, I believe, from last season, so they're trying to still work him in. But Dalton Schultz has really made a name for himself on that offense. I actually do have some Dalton Schultz in some lineups just because he's 33. We know he's going to get his 5 to 6 targets, and if he's able to get a red zone target or even some yards after the catch, it's perfect. Jared Cook, he's a good tight end. But like I said, I'm going to be targeting either Keenan Allen or Mike Williams. I'm really going to be looking at the tight ends on this team. And then the last one here is going to be Tennessee versus Seattle. We obviously know the go-to is Russell Wilson. You could go Tannehill if you wanted something a little cheaper just because Russell Wilson is a bit expensive. Chris Carson, everyone's been talking about him. He is that backfield. He is that man, the go-to in the backfield. Rashad Penny is doubtful for this game. And I'm not sure what they're going to do with him. But Chris Carson is still going to be able to get you those 16 rush-in attempts for 91. If he got that 100 plus, or if you saw the box with a touchdown, he was going to be able to get you those 20 points. And against Tennessee, he could very easily do that, just because I feel like this point total is going to be pretty high. Derrick Henry, I don't really trust him against Seattle. They seem to not be working him much. Could he always break a slate? Of course, he's Derrick Henry. But more often than not, it will, in a game like this, probably go to most of the wide receivers, and they're hopefully going to be airing out. Obviously, it's good to establish the run, but Seattle has a decent defense able to stop the run. So DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, AJ Brown, Julio Jones, any of these 4 are going to be good picks. Like I said, they're kind of all in this like weird 6K, 7K range, D-Hop being 8K. So really you can go with any of these guys here. And you can keep it kind of tight with maybe, like I said, a cheap defense, cheap tight end, maybe a cheaper like Teddy Bridgewater, Jalen Hurts QB. You definitely are able to pay for some of these guys here. And then you can kind of mix and match to see who you really want to target. So anything after that, I don't really trust Everett. Ferkser is questionable. Everett was able to give you 10, but it's 2 targets. He's never really tossing to his tight ends anyways. It's always going to be DK or Tyler Lockett. And Ferkser was good. Ferkser got me, nothing, basically. So I thought he was going to be able to do a little bit more. Like I said, it's the whole offense's fault. Could he do more if he plays against Seattle? For sure. We know how bad Seattle's their defensive ends or their DBs are, and how much air yardage they give up per game and stuff like that. So any of these guys could be good. But yeah, no, that is my week 2 video here for DFS. Hopefully some of these players you're going to be interested in and able to put in some of your lineups. And look back for week 3 because I'm going to be doing this all season. So catch you later.